Hi.
We are.
Mama.
Hello. Ooh, podcast.
Yokoso.
Yokoso. Oh, I know. Wing it. I feel like we're not that enigmatic.
Is JB's internet okay? We can't hear him anymore.
I can't hear him. His
Oh
voice
no!
is too.
I know
okay,
what's
you're
wrong. I should be heard now.
What?
I forgot
happened,
to I forgot to unmute my mic. Oh, no. Anyway,
Okay, you're back, sir.
I'm back. So hi guys again. This is Level Up Geek Night, the podcast, right?
Hi.
And we here are again. This is the group of enigmatic. Yes, big word.
Enigmatic. We're
You muted out again.
That's true.
Jay.
John,
Naghihintay na si Ninay.
we've lost you, John. All
I'm
night.
on my queue.
Ninay has become Renoa and lost to space.
She's still floating in space.
She is.
She's now Renoa. She's lost to space.
Ayan. Ayan. For some reason, ang dami kong technical difficulties this nawala yung
Baka
mic
dahil
ko.
sa wig mo yan.
Baka dahil sa wig ko.
May static daw yung wig mo.
Anyway.
Hi
Yes.
guys. Level Up Geek
Hi.
Nights, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Let's get right into the introductions now.
let's go into the
Alright.
introduction, sir.
So tonight, guys, we have a special topic on Geek Culture. And by the way, my name is John B. I am the Christian Geek and part of the Level Up crew. Together with me, I have our resident Chibi Otaku, Maya.
Mama.
Of course, we have our Final Fantasy innkeeper and resident bear, Gio.
Mhm.
Hello.
So, Gio the Hrothgar.
Gio the Rothgar. We have our boss mang, financier talaga.
Financier, like just seer.
John
Right.
G.
What's up? Hello.
And of course, our resident cook and chef that is now in outer space.
Aso?
Ninay.
So very sus. Whenever she's playing Among Us, we just automatically like kill her because
Never trust her.
never trust her. Super.
At
Look at that
least-
face. It's so suspicious. Yeah, but you smile. Ang suspicious.
Such a creepy killer smile.
I know. It's like I. Totally.
She gives new meaning to a killer smile.
It's a killer smile.
Okay, I'll put the filter back on na talaga.
Off.
Hello!
There she is. Okay.
She's now turning. You're all with her, Ninay.
Yes. We're in the Gryffindor dorm room.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I don't think the Gryffindor house looks like that pink.
May lights din.
Muggle! I'm a muggle, kaya
I
we get
suspect
to
it's
bring these things.
I suspect it's more Hufflepuff. Joke.
That's true.
Anyway.
That's true.
By the way, I'm a Hufflepuff.
Alright.
Hi, Hufflepuffs. Okay, so what are we gonna talk about tonight?
Much
What
like
are
the
we
title
gonna
of our podcast, if everyone hasn't read it yet.
Well, I know what we're not gonna talk about.
We're not going to talk about what? Politics?
This sponsor. Wait, wrong one. We don't have a sponsor.
We don't have a sponsor, sadly, but that might change.
Yet.
That sounds
Yet.
like that sounds like a Linus Tech Tips transition.
Mm-mm.
Right. So,
Anyway.
anyway, our topic for tonight is
Geek
All
culture.
right.
drum roll. Geek
Drum roll.
culture.
What
Much-
can the
Sorry, I
church?
fell down. What
Ang
can
What
the church?
can
sabog!
what can we learn from geek culture?
What can
What
we
can the church
Learn from geek
learn
culture.
learn from the
from
geek
geek
culture?
culture? Amen.
All right. So
All right.
let's try to give you a bit of a background on this.
I
There's actually a article from Relevant Magazine. Wow, such an old reference.
an
It's
old
an old
article.
actually it's an old article. But
Mm.
basically the article talks about things that the church can learn from geek culture. Now we know, I think everybody here can agree at some point or another that geek culture is often frowned upon by society and sometimes looked down upon, hindi lang sometimes, madalas. Almost always, hindi man almost
Yep.
always, but a lot of times has been
Often.
looked down by the church as well. But
Hi.
so we kind of want to flip that conversation and take a look at it on a different angle and see if the church, or yeah, the church can learn something from geek culture, no, and
Yes,
see if there
sir.
is something about geek culture that is something that we can actually adopt inside the church, right?
Yes, sir. Very
Especially
true. Very
since
true.
especially since all of us here are geeks and Christians as well, right?
Hi. Hi. All
Hi.
right. So how do we start off? I guess maybe just a really quick touch on, what is our functional definition of culture, particularly what is our definition of geek culture. So
What is it?
who wants to be the info dump for this one?
Nominate.
Sige, kayo muna. Kakain muna ako dito.
All right.
Matin na yung pagkain ko.
Ano ba? Are we gonna like?
But what is culture ba? Ano bang ibig sabihin natin when we say culture?
Okay,
We touched upon this before.
we did. We did
Uh,
have okay.
Mhm.
So we did have an earlier podcast last year on what culture is. So if you guys want to check that out, that would be very useful. I guess just to get things going, ako na lang. I'll just jump into it. Being the info nerd, I suppose. Culture basically, as we're working on it, as we're using, it's just the geek culture as we're using it is basta yung ano, what are the norms and usual behaviors, the energy, the social vibe or whatnot within a certain group of people. So yeah.
Yeah.
So when you say
I
geek culture,
I would say that culture, um I
yep.
agree with that description. I say culture is something that what a group of people, a community of people have a tendency to do together, right?
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
they have shared interests, shared backgrounds, and I think that also makes up a culture, no? And so if we're talking about
Mm.
geek culture, no, we're talking about what do geeks have in common? What do they share together, right?
Mhm.
So I guess as a geek for me, we like to talk about our hobbies. We like to talk about the same things. We like to share theories, fan theories,
Yep, yep. Like
Yes.
and we
like to
like
go
to
in and discuss.
yes, and we like to spend time like watching the same movies or the same TV shows or
Mhm.
doing or playing the same games together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hi.
What about you guys? Ano ba sa inyong geek culture? Yun kasi para sa akin yun eh.
What
Mm.
is geek culture or what is culture?
What's geek
What's
culture
What
geek
is
culture
to you?
to
To
you?
you?
Yeah, geek culture, like what you guys explained, like yung um, yeah, how we enjoy each other's company and we basically come together under our similar hobbies.
it's
In
like
this case, it is uh, the hobbies of animes and game, anime or comics or games.
Mm.
Mm.
So there can be a lot. Can be
Yeah.
books, can be TV shows, can be ano ba? Books, TV shows, and
Movies.
other or music even. So
Music.
sometimes for more mainstream examples, you have sports. Although it's less commonly used nasa term na geek sila, pero technically The behavior is similar. Sports geeks actually are not often called that, but they actually are because what do? They know the numbers, the stats, how people
Yeah, they
play, what
geek
you,
about
diba?
sports.
They
They
bet about,
Mm-hmm.
wear the jerseys
they
of
wear the
like
That
jersey,
them cosplaying.
favorites.
What?
That is cosplay.
and they'll be like,
And
they're gonna be like playing, they're gonna be playing the actual sport and be like, yeah, man, I'm like insert name here,
Yeah.
which is technically cosplay. So
You know,
yeah,
I
when
think
they
ano,
actually practice the
Fantasy
moves of the
drafting,
players.
di ba yung
they
mga
do, they
yeah,
actually
yeah,
practice the
yeah.
moves of the players, right? They do. Uh, so it's
Yeah,
fun
and what I
enough.
believe what Nina was talking about was in fantasy drafts.
That
Ooh,
too. They play games like that too.
Ooh.
Maya was about to
So
say something.
Actually,
yes,
I'd
sir.
like to share na ano, I think what geek culture looks like for me. Um, actually, when someone introduced me to Haikyuu, sabi
Hmm.
dito sa comments, Marvel Santos said, trying to convert people into fandoms. And I was really, I was really hooked to in Haikyuu. Tapos, after I watched it, the every season I watched it. And then parang nag-continue yun to to watching volleyball, actual volleyball
yeah.
players. So
Yeah, we
I was really
noticed.
rooting for Japan when Olympics came. So,
That's
iba
fun.
iba. And then I think uh it's kind of sad for me kasi not everyone um can jump into that bandwagon of fandom for me. Ang ang kaanohan ko lang diyan si Vince sa chat, 'di ba? But for some of my other friends, hindi sila masyadong into Haikyuu. And then a friend of mine, I asked her kasi this year world
Yep.
volleyball nations league,
Hmm.
they will be playing matches here in the Philippines. So I asked her,
Wow.
and nanonood din naman siya ng Haikyuu. So I think we might want to see that.
That's cool. That's
Nice.
cool.
Actually,
So yun
I
yung
do.
geeking out.
I kind of relate with
So
Maya
that's
kasi na parang that frustration where yung people are just not into the things that you're into. So because you're
Mm-hmm.
trying
Yeah.
to convert them.
uh
Um, tapos
Yes.
parang pero pag may
which is
naka pero
funny enough.
pag nakakita ka ng opportunity, pag may uy, parang interesado, jump.
It's
Oo.
it's
Conversion.
really
Agad-agad.
interesting, no? It's really interesting because like church culture is actually the same. Like speaking to the Christian crowd, this is a very similar thing to like, okay, why are you interested in Christ? And then it's like, how do you present it, right? So
Mhm.
normally when you're a geek in these things, it's like, oh, it's kind of like you share good points about it, you enthuse about it, you share your passion about it. You give it its good and you try to be very inclusive. I think, you try to be very like, oh no no no, it's okay here. Let me do something for you, and then you'll see it's really cool. So parang
Yeah.
that I think that's something we can start with. That eagerness and passion to bring someone into it. Like I don't really hear like, okay, if you're a fan, okay, there are people like who are very negative and everyone calls them, oh, you're gatekeeping, it's so toxic, and that is. But eh, what you see in a lot of people is like you really see like that passion, that love for it, and it's positive, right? It's like, hey, it's really cool. Why don't you try it? Tingnan mo, like, look at this show, or I can talk to you about like, diba you like this kind of thing? It's kind of like that. Why don't you give it a try? And then
Mhm.
I see a lot of that in geekdom. So, and gaming even. So it's like gaming. Oh, you like this kind of thing, diba? Gusto ko ng characters that look pretty, dress up. Oh, FF has glamour. It's like yung mga things, those kinds of stuff. Just examples lang. Ha. So I mean, you try to
Mm.
find something to connect with is the main point, I think.
Mm.
And most geeks, I think, do it in a very welcoming and sweet way. Awkwardly so, even.
Of course, you
Mm-hmm.
will get
Mm.
some gatekeepers.
You're,
Mhm.
but
Yep.
yes,
There
there are.
are a lot of gatekeepers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So, which is
Much,
sad.
I
much like
think
But
most cultures, I think.
it's like, yeah, like most cultures. But I think the majority are not. I would
Yeah.
like to think that the majority are not.
I think it's a tendency that ano the more people are getting into it, the more people are become some people are becoming gatekeepers, no. But in general, I think it's not usual because you want people to share your passions, ganon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just before we continue, I just wanna say hi to our audience, to peeps.
Ah,
Hello.
Hi Mords. It's been a while, and hi Ian. It's been a while
Yo,
too.
been a while.
Thank you to
Thanks for showing.
Marvel for our
Bell
very
and Oka.
active and Oka,
Our
and
friends, super
hi Kuya
friends.
Ian.
Ayan, baka puwede ko na rin siyang kausapin tungkol sa Haikyuu.
mm,
Super friends. We love you guys.
But yeah, sabi ni Ian, no, geek culture is also about sharing obsessions and fandoms with each other. And
mm.
si Marvel sabi dito, I think sometimes geek culture is like trying to mansplain something to someone. Sabi ko, grabe sa mansplaining. Pero alam mo, now that we're
But
talking
yeah, I
about
think I know what you mean. Yung condescending.
sometimes, yeah, I can see that. But I realize that in the way that we are passionate about our fandoms, yun din yung I think the same fervor or same level dapat tayo when it comes to also sharing the gospel. Ay, nagpumasok.
Mm.
I kind of jumped into it
Not
already a
wrong
bit,
there.
'di ba?
Well, we'll break it down naman point by point. So the first one is that the passion and eagerness to share is
Mm.
something we can learn from. So similarly,
Yeah.
for Christians, we can also learn to do that in the
Mm.
same manner as a positive geek, which we also know because like when you try when you want a person, I think the positive way of introducing the game or introducing a fandom to a person, you really just draw
Mm-hmm.
them in, diba, gradually.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes it works, not you hard sell. Sometimes it doesn't. But the point is,
Mm.
you look for the angle that works and respects the person.
Yeah.
Sometimes kasi they have to experience it.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
like
yeah.
in Christianity.
That's
Yeah.
also true.
That's
That
true.
also is true. That also is true. So
I
parang
think
try it.
parang I remember before yung analogy was parang 'di ba kung may bago kang sapatos at tuwang-tuwa ka dun sa sapatos na yun, isi-share mo sa lahat ng tao na may bago kang sapatos, no?
Mm,
And so
Yes.
parang when we get into our fandoms, parang you got into this, parang syempre tuwang-tuwa ka sa pinagkakatuwaan mo. So isi-share mo rin sa ibang tao. So
yeah.
parang and sometimes I think and this is not to demean or to condemn Christians, pero sometimes na notice ko naging Christians pero nahihiya i-share sa ibang tao, no,
Yeah.
compared
Mm-hmm.
to how we
It
are
is
with
hard
our
sometimes.
passions, no. And so and admittedly sometimes especially nang bago ako Christian, parang ganun din ako, medyo nahihiya pa ako i-share. Pero 'di ba, parang it is an example that we can learn, I think, as a church, that if we had the same passions in sharing our desires, no,
Mm.
then shouldn't we
Mhm.
have the same thing when it comes to sharing Christ to other people?
Mm.
Mm.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, tama naman, tama naman. Because like example, if I were like example, the games we play, like oh laro ka ng ganito, and you're always trying to like just kind of
Sneak it
push it
in.
on, diba? Sneak it in, and because you really like it, and it's like you're a gamer, right? You're a fan of ganito. Try mo lang, kasi it's something that you're kind of looking for anyway, so you can just give it a roll, right? So
Mm.
Mm.
from a more, I guess, from the faith perspective, it's like life. It's like, oh, don't you want um to pursue life in a good way? So why don't you give it a try, right? You want to get
Mm-hmm.
ano ba, peace in your life, you want to get healthy thoughts in your life, you want to get a renewed heart and spirit in your life, diba?
Mm.
Diba? So I guess just coming from that point, it's like, oh, why not? Diba?
Mm.
I guess yun yung problem ng Christianity is also we have a lot of bad rep. Um, because there are a lot of people who, I guess this, you might be able to see this in some of the biggest fandoms, like the super big ones. Specifically, unfortunately, Star Wars is one of the big
Mm-hmm.
names. There are a lot of toxic fan in Star Wars, which is really sad,
Mm.
right? So we don't see this in all fandoms, but there are. So I think ano ba mga huge fandoms that unfortunately have a significant toxic population. Star Wars is one.
Star
I don't know
Wars.
about Star Trek. I think they also kind of have some. Ano din? Sino ba? The Potter heads,
Harry
I
Mm-hmm.
guess.
Potter?
Potter.
There are some. There are some. I would
Lord
Marvel.
also
of Lord of the
Lord of
Rings.
the. Okay, that's a different debate. Let's go there somewhere. Lord of the Rings. It's a smaller fandom, so we'll see about that.
No, I think because
Um,
Lord of the Rings has a more, what do you call this? Because they tend to be a more literary slash academe fandom. So they have a tendency talaga, even if they don't mean to want
well,
accuracy in their works.
that's true. That's true. But
Another bad
fan,
reputation, I think, um bearing geek culture and
Mm.
church culture is yung some there are people who has just gotten into the bandwagon, and there are people who
Mm.
you kind of call them purists, ganon.
yeah.
Na simula pa
So
lang ng series, simula pa lang ng movie, simula pa lang ng book, nandun na sila. Tapos parang you kind of these people, yung purists and yung kakarating pa lang sa series, nagka-clash sila kasi like these purists, they say na,
yeah,
oh, hindi mo alam to or whatever, kakadating mo lang, wala kang alam, ganyan. So I think that kind of um toxic attitude or culture is kind of the same with within the geek and the church culture.
Mm.
yeah.
I think it's similar
Although,
kasi no, oo.
yeah.
Meron
Although yun nga.
kasing
Ano
I was
yan?
gonna
Sorry,
say
sorry, sorry.
Sino
You go,
mo?
you go, you go. You go first, John. I've been talking more. Let's go for it. Go for it. Go for it.
no, I was gonna
Sorry,
say
sorry.
that there is a level of gatekeeping within the church din kasi na
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
sorry, may naalala naman akong memory ni Ninay. So,
Ninay.
Lord, what, ano doon? Ang dami kong memories.
yung are you
Sana
from this
maalala lahat,
church?
joke.
Yung are you
Are, oh,
attending this
are you...
church?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Certain
Mm.
Share,
attires.
share, share.
No, I think
Wag
we did
na.
talk
No,
about it before,
Yeah,
didn't
we
we?
we
did talk
talked about
about
that.
it.
Ayun din
And
ba
The,
So
yun?
it's not like
sa
it's a secret.
toxic, sa toxic
Mm.
cultures. At toxic culture
you
Yes,
in...
could say,
toxic in the
you could
church.
say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So it may not
So,
even be intentional. It's just there,
yeah,
Yeah.
right?
there's a level of gatekeeping talaga even within the church. Even in especially in the more, I'm not saying uh all churches like this, but the more traditional or the more the older Christian churches, especially in the States, there's a tendency for gatekeeping. In fact, I remember the story about Mahatma Gandhi and the South African church.
Oh, yeah.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah.
That is an example of gatekeeping talaga
As
because
in,
they only
literal din talaga.
Yeah, like
literal
block them
talaga,
from the door.
'di ba? So
Yeah, that's one of the more commonly cited examples of Christian
Mm.
gatekeeping. That said, it is a lot more common going back to the geek culture. Like, although that is present in geek culture,
Mm-hmm.
normally you have to run deeper into it to encounter it. So, for example, a
Mm.
positive atmosphere would be like you go to a convention or an expo. I mean, back before this whole COVID thing happened rather. If you are like wearing a certain geek attire, normally fans of that similar one would be like very open. They'd be still they and the thing
Yeah.
is they'll celebrate with you, which is actually what
Yes.
happened to me and Nina, right? So that's one of where our friendship point started. Like I saw her in her Mass Effect jacket. I was like, "Oh, hey, gandang jacket. That's a great looking jacket."
It's like,
So it's like, yeah, you're into Mass
A
Effect, which was
fellow
really
DGen. Wait, sorry.
it's like a, Oy,
DJ
Mass
na
Effect naman.
Mass
grabe
Ganun.
yung
Effect naman.
Uh,
Mass Effect is cool,
I'm
man.
joking. I'm joking.
This is what happens when you're in FF too long. No, I'm kidding. Too much cat energy. Anyway, but yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of common stuff that you kind of just really connect with, and then you can laugh about it. Like even if you guys don't really know each other that well, that shared
Mm.
passion and fandom and thing that
Mhm.
you want or
mm,
you're into, you guys know that oh, you've gone through at least the basics of that thing. and you can quickly bond into it. So it's not, and that is like, is that something that happens within the faith, diba? Within the church? Parang it's easier to find the gatekeeping mentality. It's easier to find like, oh, legit Christian pa nga ba to? It's like, I mean, yeah, sure, you can find that in geek culture as well. But I think the majority, I would like to say, and I would think that the majority of geek culture is actually more chill about it.
Yeah.
Oh, you're into this? Great. Sino bang favorite character mo? Favorite story? I mean, honestly, let's think about it. If you translate that into the Christian faith, when was the last time you went like new Christian? Oh, who's your favorite character? It sounds funny, but it's like, sino bang pinaka-inspired?
What happens to Jesus? Was he
I saw that clip.
Funny though. It's funny though. But I mean, let's be real. Like that doesn't happen that often, right?
It
What
doesn't.
happens to Jesus? I don't care about spoilers. Tell me, tell me.
Oh
The
my
moment,
I'm really loving this main character. Di ba?
like, I'm
In that,
really loving
in
this
that,
main character. That's true. It's like, grabe, he's so compassionate. Joke. Not really. He is, though, he is. But it's like, I mean, we don't have that kind of conversation with fellow Christians, right? It often just goes
Yeah.
into like, I don't know, arguments and details, which is really sad, really unfortunate. Hindi dapat ganun. So
Why are you here? No, just kidding. Who brought you here?
yeah, I mean, depends also
I
on
mean,
the
if you phrase
tone.
it differently, it doesn't sound so bad, JD.
No, not at all.
why are you here?
Or you could be like, well, but what if your tone is very like warm and welcoming? It's like, oh hey, why are you here? Something like
Oo.
that.
Yeah. That changes things.
It
Sabi
changes
ni
a lot.
Hmm.
Sabi ni Kuya Ian, what is often termed as gatekeeping is often geeks defending the integrity of what they're passionate about from people coming and trying to make changes to whatever that object of passion is. I feel like these are if we're going to talk about church people, these are people who are arguing that doctrine and theology.
Yes,
Mm-mm.
it
True,
is.
true, true.
But there are also, we can't escape the fact that there are also people who are the equivalent of na yung, oh, you're not a real fan. It's like, hindi ka talagang
No,
Christian
that's
kasi
yeah, that's the gatekeeper
which is
talaga.
like a lot. Di ba? Let's use that. Hindi ka talaga Christian. Ba't ganun yung damit mo? Ah.
How come you don't notice tiny, obscure
why don't
detail of the?
or sometimes it's not even an obscure detail. It's just a thing that like, oh, I'm new to this. I didn't know we had to do that. And actually, biblically speaking, it's like, kailangan ba talaga? That's when you have to learn.
In the church.
So
Mhm.
But why are you showing so much skin in your outfit? You're
that
in the
happened. That
church.
happened.
Hmm.
Diba? But that is, I mean, that's thing that I think that's a complaint that often happens, and that ganito na lang. Another way of looking at it. When you think of Christians na hindi ka Christian, what do you think of automatically, right? So, wala, judgmental sila, ganun. Yung mga ganun.
Mm-mm.
That's a common trait. So, it is a lot rarer to experience the, oh, they're very warm and loving and friendly and they're awesome to be with. It's a much rarer, unfortunately, much rarer trait na automatically you think of, which is what we hope to change. Whereas when you think of geeks, uh the mainstream culture would be like, ang weird
Hmm.
nila. That's one thing they have in common with
Yeah.
devout Christians. People do think that devout Christians can be a bit odd. But aside from that, when you actually start getting into it, it would be like, you make encounters with them and then they warm up to you. It's like, wow, they're so warm. So parang,
Mhm.
I think
I
that's
don't
the
know.
nice thing that I think the church can learn from, though, is that when we
Yeah.
talk about geek culture and geek communities, the tendency of geek why communities are formed in geek cultures is normally
Hmm.
because not just because of shared interest, but because they find a safe space where they
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
they
Mhm.
can be who they are. Gets?
Yeah.
Kasi may
Yeah.
tendency within the
Mhm.
church na may pressure eh. There's a pressure to conform to the church, which is not a
Like,
bad thing per se,
fashion,
but
like a ship.
in conforming to the church they lose themselves or they're not able to be truly who they are within the
Mhm.
church. And
Mm,
the geek culture or geek communities have a tendency to be welcoming to people who have different backgrounds, have
yeah.
different lifestyles that that a lot of people might find weird or strange or odd, or right. But in the church kasi pag different ka, para kang ano eh, a lot of I'm not saying this is I'm not saying this is for the entire church, but that it does happen, no,
Hmm.
ng
Mm.
tendency na parang pag minsan parang you have to conform, you have to be part of the you cannot you cannot deviate, ganun. And
From
so
the accepted square.
yes, sabi nga ni Oscar, you shall not pass.
It's like, oh, do you tick the boxes? No, you don't pass. Yeah, right.
No, so I
So
think sabi na ni Vince daw na napagsabihan daw siya sa church na bakit ka naka-cargo shorts? Naka-cargo shorts.
Shorts.
Parang ay. True
it's
story
like
daw.
true story, no doubt. Very odd. It's like, what's with cargo shorts? But anyway, but yeah, that's one thing. I think yun, bringing to mind the acceptance and interconnectivity. I think geek culture does this really well than other cultures or church culture. Yung tipong sa church culture, it's very stratified. Like, oh, kung single ka, single ka. Kung couples ka, couples ka. So I mean, there is a good point to the structure. Like, yeah, okay, it can be helpful to really learn. But what's nice about geek culture is the cross of, like, you can have a geek culture or a community, and then there's kids and then there's old guys and
Yeah.
couples, and then they all just like, oh, we have a similar passion, and they interconnectedly support each other in a it feels like a much more organic way. And this is difficult to find, especially in larger churches, um, because it's very structured. So parang this is something I would think na the church culture can learn from, which is creating safe spaces of interaction. That it doesn't have to be so stratified. So yeah, I mean, it's again, church is a spiritual family, and in a healthy, warm, loving family, you have all the different sorts of roles. Like in a big family, like, oh, you have the grandparents or the grandparents. Your parents are parents. You have singles, you have
Hmm.
singles. You have kids, you have kids. Like parang, and they're all just like, just one big mixed bunch of whatever. And it's like, yeah, they all have their own different things, but they connect. So ideally, you know, by God's grace, that's what kind of family feels like. And a spiritual family, sana ganun din. Di ba?
Yeah, parang suddenly naalala ko Encanto sa kinukuwento ni John.
Right, right. Well, of course, because very recent thing, Encanto being a
Everyone has a role and a responsibility, and um the 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 family. I mean, if you watched Encanto, for those who haven't watched it, spoiler alert,
yeah.
minor spoilers. But one of the things that you will see in the family there, the family dynamic
Mhm.
is it's either you're gonna feel welcome in the family, or you're gonna feel like the pressure of
Like,
having to perform. The anxiety and the pressure of having to perform for the family. And so
Scary.
the question is your church pressuring you to perform, or you feel anxious if you don't perform, or do you feel like you're welcome, do you feel like you're being
Not
nurtured
welcome.
and taken care of? Yun yung question doon. And I think that's something that
I
we can learn in a sense from geek cultures in geek communities, is they do have a tendency to want to welcome you, to nurture you, to take care of you. Kasi parang the idea is you are one of ours, no? So we will
I
take care of you, ganon.
Yep, yep.
So the question is this something that the church can learn? Definitely, I would say.
Uh, Definitely something we can learn from. That's true. Very true.
Agreed.
Hmm.
Interesting, like everything here is revolving about around uh being more ano ba, accepting and warm and just like getting to connect with people. It's a very connective kind of spin.
But if you think about it, the church was supposed to is really designed that way. The early church, the reason
Originally, yeah.
a lot of people, the reason why
And
the
still
early
is, yeah.
church thrived and why people came together in the early church, and in fact, in early churches, people lived together. They lived in communities where they're all surrounded by each other. It's because they felt
Mm.
safe, no, even in spite of persecution. No, they felt
Yeah.
like it was safer to be together, to be around each other than to be apart. And I think that's something that the modern church should be learning. I think smaller community churches have that,
Mm.
but as the church gets bigger, there's a
Mm.
tendency to become corporate.
Yeah. Which
Mm.
Because
it has
it's because it
certain
becomes so many. Right? There's so many people to think about. They have to be more organized than
true. It
Mhm.
has
before.
certain benefits in the sense that you're able to keep a certain cohesiveness. But it's true that the very real challenge is you lose that connect the personal connections to people. So that's why you have to always like find that way to keep that spirit of relationship.
Mm.
Which
Diba?
I think yung I mean small groups is like a
That's
way
where the
for
warmth is
us.
supposed to come from at
Yeah,
that
it's
Yep,
supposed to
point.
be
Yeah.
there.
Mm.
Yeah.
supposed to. So that's something that we all have to keep our hearts open for. Loving people is a tricky thing, especially for introverts. Right?
Like our alone
Yeah.
time.
True.
Uh, Actually, when I think about it, no, that's really why Level Up was created. Was to create that community, a safe space for people who are different or are different, who identify themselves as different from how the church sees them. And so
Mm-mm.
parang but in a way that we also bring the church. And then, I mean, like us, we're all Christians. Come together, but we also have
Right.
shared passions. We are also interested in a lot of things that the church would often think of as
Mm.
useless or time wasting.
Questionable.
Or
But
suboptimal for success in life.
yes,
Yeah.
but I think it's really the idea that we need to also take, parang as a church, we have to take a look at these things in the same manner that we look at sports, because we know the church doesn't look at the same way as sports. Eh. When it comes to
Hmm.
sports, it's productive now, but in the same manner, if sports is abused ang usage, if you're spending 10 hours a day obsessing with sports, then it's just as bad or worse, no? Than someone who is addicted to gaming, addicted to their fandoms, no? So I think it's really all in moderation, and that's why I think it's sort as quote unquote support group, no, a small group that understands your hobbies and passions, but at the same time knows how to balance it with your priorities in life and priorities with God, is perfect,
Hmm.
Uh,
no? And that's why, if you guys want something like that, join us in Level Up. Wow, plug.
right. Not wrong there.
So Vince says,
Think yeah.
people might think that sometimes pa nga demonic yung
Or
ating mga
demonic.
hobbies.
Yeah. Well, these are, I guess you could say, a lack of understand. Actually, but also the same. It goes both
We
ways,
have
naman.
gone through this before, no?
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
It goes both ways. There are people who think that our hobbies are evil or demonic, and there are also some people from geek culture who think that the church is just the most. Ano yun? I remember seeing, oh, it's a trope. I'm gonna create a new world where the church is evil and power controlling, and they just want to dominate everything and mind wipe the human race. I'm like, that's so original. But so
Maya,
it's like,
you,
no, 'di ba? No, I mean honestly, like in most isekai or in most fiction, it's like how it's difficult to find the church as designed because it's. I mean, to be fair, we have gotten a lot of bad rep because
I
of
mean, it doesn't have to be
ourselves.
just us, but I mean,
Yeah,
Catholic. I mean, history has shown like
yeah. History has
religion has
shown
been used as
it has been misused in many
Been
cases.
weaponized.
It has very
yeah. Like
unfortunate.
Yeah.
just think of the early history of the Philippines. Yung
Yeah.
Catholic, yung early Catholic priests, di ba
Yeah,
dun?
yeah, of course, of course. So that's a big sign of how religion was sorely misused and weaponized. and hopefully we never see the day where geek culture is weaponized. But unfortunately, it has been. And,
It
uh,
has.
It has.
I mean, when you attack people over it, so with it and over it, it's
Yeah.
anyway. That might be a totally different topic. So the point is, bringing it back. So like, what are the thing? Is okay, we're very well aware of the positives and negatives you can find in geek culture. So we're trying to focus
Yeah.
on like what are the common positive traits we can learn from it. So yun, I'm
Si
just
Kuya
trying.
I
I
think
yeah, go on, Maya. Go.
what we can also learn from the geek culture kasi I feel like whenever we talk about yun, our shared passions, our shared interests, parang we kind of take it lightly lang. Like there's always fun, there's always
Yeah,
you know, hindi yung hindi mo sineseryoso kasi dun pumapasok yung gatekeeping eh, 'di ba? Pag nagiging sobrang seryoso na yung ano, yung
Mm.
usapan niyo about ano, about your fandoms. And I think it's the same for ano, for the church na if you go really too serious about it,
You might see.
na alam mo yun, nawawala na yung fun out of it. And you kind of can't, yun yung parang part na you can't be yourself. Na kailangan mag-perform ka or something. When you can actually just talk about it lightly if someone is uh saying a wrong doctrine or scripture or whatever, you can just lightly tell him, 'di ba, correct him with a loving manner. So parang
yeah.
yun yung nakikita ko na ano na something that we can learn from the geek culture.
Siguro just to adjust the term a bit, if you don't mind. Like rather than say if you get too serious about it, it's not that you get too serious about it. It's more of like um if you get too uh finicky with the minor details and you lose the
Mm,
spirit of it.
Yeah.
mm,
You lose
Yeah.
the
yeah,
heart of
yeah.
it. You lose the foundation of it. Kasi the foundational
Mm,
stuff, usually hindi naman ganun. Okay, so foundation of faith or
Yeah.
foundation of being a fan of the fandom does not and should not rely on the ability to talk about the minutiae or the tiny minor details or the
Mm.
exhaustive details of whatever it is, whether it's about
mm,
church history or whether it's like fine details of theology or like I don't know, like the length of Darth Vader's lightsaber and its functional buttons. you
yeah,
don't
yeah,
you don't need
yeah.
that to be a fan
Fan.
of whatever, right? Or like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, the fifth Doctor was blah blah blah, or I mean,
The
ganun. Hindi
fifth
naman
doctor.
kailangan.
Mm,
It's like, do you
Yeah.
know all the doctors? Recite them to me in order. I'm like,
Right.
I don't.
It's
why?
this. This reminds me kind of like yung what's that yung sa show The Rookie. Yung one of the things that really stuck to me kasi is yung differentiating between the spirit of the law and the letter of the law.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. I
Say a
think
lot
that's
of times people get caught up with the whole being very literal of the
hmm The
what
law.
of the law,
What's in the
and they
books?
forget that why it was made in the first place.
Yep. So it's a misuse of the what was written, misapplication. So yeah, something like that,
Mm,
basically.
I think ano, just to add din naman, uh how do I put it? I think there are a lot of toxic cultures when it comes online, online geek culture. Pero
Mm.
when you're face to face with other geeks, more often than not, hindi kayo toxic to each other. Eh. Sometimes there can be arguments, a lot of arguments about who is the better character, who is the better husband or waifu, alam mo
Yeah.
yun? Alam mo yun? Or
And
Ah,
like, sabi nga daw nila, like I was reading the article, rereading the article again na, what is better, Star Trek or Star Wars? People argue, but at the end of the day, pag minsan, nagtatawanan na lang kayo. You're just laughing about how ridiculous your arguments are already. That's because we're not built to make it personal, eh. No, and I think that's a problem when there are arguments online and sometimes arguments in church, they take it very personally, no. And sometimes that's something that we have to avoid. Kasi kahit ako, para pag minsan pag I feel like tumataas na yung dugo ko, teka, shh, calm down.
because
Slow
it's like
down.
you might be
Pause.
we might be forgetting the the big picture, like the what's really important, because we
Yeah,
get
Mm-hmm.
so
because and
caught
I'm
up
not
in.
going. I have talked to some people in the church about doctrine, about certain theologies na hindi naman for me kasi are non-essential. Hindi naman sila may hindi naman mawawala salvation ko. Pero kung awayin ako about mag-argue, parang personal na personal, kailangan bang
Yeah.
away, no? No, so parang and
I think it's easier in geek culture to lay it down because they're aware that the details or the minutiae about these things do not really affect your life as a whole. Whereas in Christianity or in faith, it can be a bit more difficult because there are people who believe it does. So it's remembering that
Mm,
no,
yeah.
the foundational stuff is what does matter. That's why it's the solid ground. But
Mm-hmm.
the rest, it's like example, when you build a house, when you build a nice, strong, sturdy house, every if you want a strong, sturdy house, almost everyone's foundation is going to be the same. It has to be made of concrete na ganitong kalalim. It has to have certain I mean, there's slight differences, like, technically speaking. But, in principle, it's the same. However, the kind of house you put on top of it can be different. Diba? The principle is the same. Like, sure, you have, ano ba yan? You have walls, you have a roof, you have a door. Those are the things. But, like, the details can be different. So I
Would you
think
like
it's
a
like,
minimalist one? Do you want like
yeah.
a Scandinavian kind of aesthetic?
Or you have the Japanese look, Chinese, Asian. I don't know. But the point is like, you have a house which is on which is well constructed, right? I think that's the way of looking at the Christian life. We want a well constructed house. Our foundations are solid
yeah.
and similar and the
And so
same. But
and yeah.
diba?
And so I think that's why geeks tend to, in general, are a little bit better in terms of handling debates and arguments than some Christians. That
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sa totoo lang I mean, especially now that
Fine.
there are Christians arguing about politics, and I'm not gonna touch that so much, but
We are
just
not
to
gonna
say,
touch that
The
today.
10-foot pole. Sorry.
but
I think
the
it's you have an
idea, I'm
understanding
just
of not
making
taking it personally.
Mm.
ako kasi parang I don't take it personally. What galit na galit, 'di ba? And pero when it comes to when it comes to geekery, parang okay, we don't agree, pero at the end of the day, okay, we don't agree, pero we still parang we're still friends, we're still in a community. I mean, even us, 'di ba? We find people have different personalities, we have different
That's true.
tastes, and sometimes we annoy each
Rilo.
Ahem.
Ahem. Naipasok
Yeah,
talaga.
we have
Alright.
different tastes. We have different tastes.
And
Yep.
sometimes kakainis. And sometimes we even annoy each other. But at the end of the day, we come together as a community, diba?
Hmm,
And
hmm,
so
hmm.
parang, that is something that I see that the church needs more learning of, no? No? So anybody want to read
The
the comments?
people of
Medyo
the
marami
church.
ng comments.
Sige, let me see.
Gusto ko yung
I-
one
I'll
about the
try to
DVD.
go.
Go, Gio.
Let's see. I'll start from I think thousands from 7 minutes ago. Madami naman sa geek culture. Sometimes they're even better teachers than the church, which is sad since we're supposed to be the ones teaching, but because of the mindset, it gets lost.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Ako personally, I think Gio, for example, is actually a very good teacher when he's teaching board games. When he's
Hmm.
teaching games, and whatever, he's very, very patient. Pero pag minsan sa church, nagmamadali. Basta sundan mo yung yung booklet. Basta sundan mo yung nasa parang, okay. Don't deviate
Well,
from that.
yeah, it's well, anyway, that's just like one of the examples, I guess. It's hopefully something we can learn from, diba? That patience to teach people about those things, I think.
Hmm. Kasi
Ah,
pag minsan, are we as patient then when we talk to, let's say, our disciples? Are we as patient when we talk to other people about doctrine and ministry? Or tinatamad lang ba tayo? Or parang napipilitan lang ba tayo? Pero Actually,
Alright.
geeks are so passionate to teach people about their fandoms.
Yep.
And
Sometimes
there's
too fast.
Too passionate.
yung parang, whoa there, whoa.
But yeah, but I mean, the healthy geek, term, I don't know, the healthy geek knows when and how to rein it in. So you don't flood people, you float them. I don't know if that's a term. Yeah,
It's-
It is now.
it is now. We'll use it. We don't flood people, we float you. I don't know what the heck.
sabi ni
Anyway,
Ku- sabi ni Kuya Ian, one of his sort of passion is finding bona fide Christian board games. One such game that even non-believers like it.
yeah, that's
Pretty
rare.
hard. Like
Mm.
when it's like like very obvious na Christian yung theme.
Uh-uh.
Is that what you mean? Yeah. It's hard to find one that doesn't really turn off. Well, I think.
I saw
Yeah,
this Christian board game, hindi ko lang nalaro. I wanted to try it out.
Which one?
Parang I forgot the title, pero it basically follows the missionary journey of Paul. Tapos may mga
Oh,
ano,
cute.
so parang may mga things that you need to do to be successful in your missions when you enter cities or something. Parang may mga counters and everything siya. So parang I kind of just want to try it to see it, pero ano mahaba daw game so hindi ko nalaro.
yeah. It looks like
I,
it's one of
I
those.
can imagine na medyo mahaba nga yun. Like knowing Paul's journey. Parang,
That's like one of those strategy games where you have to build up resources and influence. No?
It kind of feels like that. It feels like a strat board game.
It does. Well, anyway, we're kind of veering off a little. How do
Mm-hmm.
we reorient,
No,
ladies and gentlemen?
we're still reading comments here. Daming comments eh.
Ah, yes. Let's
Yeah,
go
we
through the
are.
comments.
So, how
Go
about
Gio.
Ian Carlo Rillion?
Sure.
Being
What did?
both a Christian and geek slash writer slash artist, it's benefited me when I study the Bible in context. It's like my obsession when I read D&D books. I think he's
Ah,
more talking about like rulings in D&D
yeah.
games.
But it
See,
it does makes it's still a positive thing, I would say. Like something you learn how to reading the Bible in context makes you a better Christian, makes you a better geek as well. If you're a DM, diba?
Yeah, and it allows you to better understand what's going on in
Mm.
the world that you're reading when you're reading the Bible. Kasi when you read like D&D books, usually there are rules so you understand context easily
Yeah,
of why a certain action or certain location is
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 the way
uh,
it
i-
is.
is the way it is. And so when we read the Bible, it's also context is king. It's very very important talaga na you understand why certain passages are written a certain way, who is the
Okay.
audience, who's the writer.
Mm.
These things give you a better understanding of why it was written rather than just read it at face value or else walang sense. May mga moments na walang sense, 'di ba? I mean, if you read,
Walang
for
sense
example,
or improper sense.
the shortest
Yeah.
verse in the Bible says Jesus wept. Anong context mo doon? Paano mo maintindihan yon kung hindi mo alam yung story, 'di ba? Pero kung binasa mo
Yeah,
Jesus wept, oh, umiyak si Jesus, at ano ngayon? 'Di ba?
that's true. It's like, why did he weep? All
Ayun.
right. So, what other comments do we have?
Sabi ni Alex, it is about appreciating the creativity of the creators and the characters they have made. Hmm.
Oh, so that's like in a Christian context, it's appreciating each other, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, yes, yes.
Like,
And the master creator.
yeah.
the question
Indeed.
is, do we appreciate each other? It's like
Or,
who's your
or like
favorite? Hindi, joke. Nako, patay. Oh, I like
aggravate one
character.
another.
Or,
si
diba?
Vince, sabi ni Vince pala, you know what doesn't float? A sunken ship.
Ay, patay. Okay,
But
we can.
it's my sunken ship, sorry.
Uh,
Affected.
whoa, whoa,
affected.
whoa! What are you
Whoa,
talking
whoa
about?
there.
As we were saying, we know when to step back.
Or do we? Hindi ako alam.
Ay, eto sabi ni
Sige.
Kuya Ian, yung game na dinidescribe ko yung commission daw. He has that and the expansion is coming.
There's an expansion. What?
I wanna play
That's
that
good.
game.
Hopefully, one of these days we can. I don't know. Maybe we can set up a video game. Video. That sounds funny. A video board game. But yes,
May D&D 5e compatible module that is set in the Old Testament. What?
that's true. Yeah, I actually saw stuff
Ah.
about that. It's very interesting how they spin those things, and I have my own take on how. But maybe that's a different discussion. How can you create quote unquote good Christian games? That's a thing to talk about, no? Or a good Christian um entertainment material, diba?
It's
That's
one
something.
video game, diba, being made based on Jesus' life, and then there's like at one point you just may gauge ka to like heal people. I feel like that was like really
Ay,
cool.
that game, that video game.
Which
Mm-hmm.
one?
I'm
Yung
not
What's it
I
called?
am,
good.
ano nga yun? I am Jesus Christ ata yun or...
I forgot about that.
That one where you go
Yes,
through his life.
it's
I
on
Yeah, I am Jesus Christ. Oh, is it on Steam?
it's on Steam.
It's on Steam.
And its release date is this year.
So so this is proof of our geekiness because we're like geeking out over Christian games. There is that. It's like wow. I mean, for me, I'll be honest. It's very difficult to find an actually good Christian game. Like parang, I mean, at least a really good game that respectfully treats the Christian thing, church thing. So
You get to walk on water.
You get to what do you call this? Heal the sick,
Heal the sick.
multiply the fish,
that's funny.
multiply the
I mean,
fish and bread.
you know what it feels more like? It feels more like a digital novel. I think that's a good take on it.
Yeah.
Kind
Anyway,
of like yung mga Walking Dead. Um, what kind of what company makes those things? I forgot. Anyways,
Anyways, before we get
anyways, too
derailed again,
distracted.
yes, ano yung ano natin?
Go
Other
going back. Sabi
comments.
sa wala na, ubos na mostly in the comments.
Ah,
Comments on games na yung lumalabas.
yes, well, we are. So,
The article that I'm referencing based for our discussion today says that geeks can do acts 2 better than many churches. No,
mm,
so
so
what do
what
we
is
mean
that?
by that? Well, in Acts 2, if to give a background to everybody, when in Acts 2 it says now that people came together, they met together every day, they shared food together. Basically, they did everything together every day, araw-araw. And it didn't matter whether they were young or old, they were male, female, whatever their gender was or whatever their age was, they just came together. And I think kasi sabi niya that the difference is that the church tends to group people into age groups, into life stages, into
Uh,
to whatever. But the beauty of the geek community is it doesn't matter what how old you are, young or old. Like us in Level Up, we play sometimes with the guys who are teens. Sometimes we play with people who are older, no, than us, and it doesn't really matter per se na and we enjoy our time together. And I think that's important yung tinatawag na life on life
mm-hmm.
na sharing. Kasi even with small groups I'll be honest, sometimes with small groups we don't some small groups don't really do that They just meet for Bible studies Tapos na, yun na yun, no? And then
yeah,
Yeah, kasi yung intergenerational na discipleship parang ngayon pa lang dumadating sa ano natin sa bokabularyo natin
that's true. Yung mentorship, that's what they call it.
yeah. And so it's something that I think as a church That's also something that we can learn talaga to understand
Mhm.
the idea of no, doesn't have to be na parang kailangan same age group kayo lahat or
Mm.
that your
Mm.
community is just limited to this, no? It can be a wide variety of people and life stages.
It's a entire community, basically. I think I did touch on that earlier when I was mentioning like from all walks of life, from all. I think yung principle of like how sometimes you have such very different social background, cultural backgrounds, and you can be totally good friends just because of that shared fandom,
Mhm.
diba? And that's harder. That's a bit harder to find in church because people are like, "Oh, I feel so awkward." Iba yung ano nila. It's like, why? It's a good question, right? Like, why? We should all love Christ and find a way to connect in that way.
I
So
have a question
something
for you
to
guys.
consider.
I don't know if this is an experience that you experience, but ako na-experience ko to na yung single friends mo, pag kinasal na sila, parang hindi mo na sila nakakasama.
Oh my gosh, that is so true.
And I understand naman that nagkakaroon ng divergence, no? Because syempre different na yung mga ano. But the
Mhm.
tendency na talaga parang hindi na kayo nagsasama at all.
Hindi na kayo
Which is,
friends.
Mm.
Okay.
friends pa rin naman kayo,
Uh,
Thankfully,
pero
hindi
hindi
ko
na,
na-experience yun. Yung friend ko kakaano lang, yung ka-D-group mate ko kakasal lang nila. Pero yung siya tsaka yung husband niya
like,
nagge-Genshin pa rin kami together.
Oh.
oh, that's
See,
great.
that's a positive thing about the geek culture, right?
Yeah, yeah,
'Di
yeah.
ba? 'Di ba? Because of
Shoutout
that
nga
common,
pala.
Shout out.
you know who you are. You know who you are. I
Yeah.
But,
think I also feel that from my non-geek friends, ironically. I do have some friends na kasal sila. Um, and I still, at you could say almost at will, I'm actually still able to just go up and talk to them almost anytime, and we can just find time together. I have a couple of friends like that. We have a couple of friends like that. Some of them are actually hanging out with us continually. Sven Mai, hello. Diba? And they also happen to be geeks,
uh,
right? Sino pa ba? We don't get to meet as often, but I know they're always there. Si Darlene and Derek, diba? They occasionally, well, si Derek occasionally pops up, and they also happen to. Well, Derek is a huge geek, right? If you remember.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So it's interesting. It's very interesting. So, and of
It's,
course, Kuya Ian. Like we haven't physically met him for like I don't know 10 years. I'm kidding. Not really. Like I'm super glad to have Ian around, even if it's just commenting online. It's like Kuya Ian, yung games natin are still very memorable. Thank you.
no,
So
I
you
bring
know,
it. I understand what Vince is saying, that are they obligated to hang out with us? I mean, ibang life stage talaga. And life happens, sabi nga ni Kuya Ian. And I understand
yeah,
that.
it
Pero,
does. It does.
alam mo yun, pero, but when you look at, for example, certain small community churches in the US, ano nakikita ko, from what I've seen is that, married couples don't necessarily break off, hindi man break off, but they actually still have hangouts with their single friends and vice
Mhm.
versa. So parang,
Mm,
why is it, I don't know why, is that a Filipino thing? I don't know if na parang biglang, ay hindi na kayo nag-hangout dahil married na sila. Ganon. So, nangyayari
yeah.
talaga siya sa, I don't know kung, if it's a Filipino thing that's causing that or it's something else. No?
Yeah. Well,
But,
it really depends. It really depends, I suppose. We do have friends again. See Mike and Angel, another one.
hi Mike, hi
Using
Angel.
I'm using them as good examples because
Are they here?
wala. No, they're not right here, but they pop up every now and then. And I mean, you have the confidence. Well, at least some of us have the confidence to just like, hi, may kwento tayo. You open up and just talk to them. It's just interesting lang that most of these are fellow geeks.
Yeah. I think that's why we do still hang out with them. We do talk to them. It's because they are fellow geeks. And the distance or the time that they're not able to spend time with us is really mainly because iba na nga talaga yung life stage.
Mhm.
Pero
Mm,
yung iba kong parang, alam mo yung pag minsan, pag nagkakitaan na lang kayo ng dahil nagkakitaan na lang kayo, kaya lang kayo nagkausap ng couple friends mo. And I'm not generalizing that it's like that for everybody, but there is a tendency, no? But in geek culture, iba eh. Parang may, for some reason, there is still that unifying factor. Married or not, we are friends for life because of our shared passions and fandoms.
Yep.
So ang
That is
tanong,
more common there. Yeah.
so ang tanong ko kay Ninay, sino ka shared
Yeah.
passion mo sa Raylo?
Long.
In our friend group.
No, well, yeah, it's just me. I do have like the Twitter community and like the fanfic writers.
Twitter community.
Yes.
That's a thing. Okay. It's okay. Raylo isn't the only fandom you have. You have a lot of others, to be fair.
But it's like my main one that I can't let go of. It's like a
That's the geek for you.
It's for you, or is it? No. Okay, sige. Ano pa ba yung ano natin?
Actually, I will jump off from what Ninay said that she can't let go of that fandom. I think there, to a certain extent, geeks with their fandoms, they have very strong convictions about them.
Mm,
And I
true.
think that's a good
fun.
thing, ah. I mean, it's something that we as a church can learn from. Kasi minsan talaga
Mm,
parang feeling ko some convictions go out the
Pinalaban
window.
ko talaga.
that's
I'm
true.
already sunk with this ship, so I'm like underwater.
Take me.
That's funny. That is funny, though.
May
I
I
have
be like
sunk
that
with this
too
ship.
with my convictions in in my
Man.
work.
Kasi I've seen, people who their convictions go out the window when certain situations arise, when pressure comes, when it's a question of conforming to the group, nawawala bigla yung convictions. Eh, Geeks are
Sad.
not. Their convictions tend to be there for
Their
their
convictions
passions.
tend to be very hard seated.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Isn't it? That's true, isn't it? I don't know. Well, anyway, I mean, we have some like recently, like the Lord of the Rings stuff. It took a long time for me to adjust on that. So, shrug. I don't know.
Ako kasi, hi guys, my unpopular opinion from the Lord of the Rings. Let's wait and see.
No, no, no. Let's wait and see. Definitely, it's just like okay, yeah. This is not where to get into it, but we're trying to learn from geek culture, not find ways like ay pangit ng geek culture. Wag naman tayo ganun. I don't want to get so. It's like yeah, we'll see, we'll see. There are a lot of good things about it. There are a lot of issues about it, but if it brings someone to the Bible, cough. I mean the books. I have no complaints. So
Yes.
Okay.
how should we close this evening? Any final thoughts? I suppose.
I mean,
It's like deep into a thing. Sorry. What was the question again? Sorry.
what final thoughts before we
How
close?
do we close?
Oh, how
Unless you
do
So
have
we
more,
strong,
unless may naisip ka
strong
pang
start.
mga cultural stuff about geeks that the church can learn from. I think marami naman
Right.
talaga matututunan ng church from geeks in general. And there are
Mhm.
things that the church should also, I think that the geek culture can adapt from the church. Eh.
Yep, yep,
So
yep.
the like or else toxic lagi.
Yes, sir.
Ako, final thoughts. I think, um, hindi naman sa yung mga natututunan natin from geek culture ay bago. Kasi if you read the Bible, yung mga practices like yun nga coming together as a community, nandun
Mm-hmm.
na siya eh. Ano
Mm.
na siya eh. It originated from the Bible as well as nakita ko kanina yung comments na um si yung Counter-Strike friends niya, naglalaro pa rin sila together and then sinasama nila yung kids nila.
Oh,
When in the Bible, it tells us na to teach the Lord's ways to your children, 'di ba?
yeah.
So, I think as people created by God, parang innate na sa atin yung ganun. Kaya nakita din natin siya sa geek culture. And the church
Mm,
has just kind of um veered away from that practice. And I think this is just a reminder for the church that, uy, ito
mhm,
yung what the Bible originally says for us to do as Christians, to be in a community, to teach it to our kids, to really be yung mga pinag-usapan natin na convictions and everything. So I think more than nag-uusapan natin what the church can learn from geek culture, when in fact it has already been written in scripture, but we are just manifesting yung kung ano yung sinabi sa scripture. So it's kind of
yep.
like more of like a reminder for the church to go back to its roots. That's
Amen.
for me.
Amen.
Amen.
Ganda, ganda.
Sounds good.
Go closing prayer na.
Praise
Closing
God.
prayer. Joke
Okay,
lang.
tapos na tayo. Tapos na.
That's it. Game over.
That was
So that was a really good one,
mic
though.
drop.
How about the rest? What are your final thoughts?
Um,
Mm,
hmm. I'm
After
like,
that,
I'm
like,
good. I'm good.
Hindi na
like
But
maganda.
copy paste.
I
yeah,
wanna, I wanna let
it's a
Maya.
pretty strong final statement kasi.
It is a very strong final statement. And I've talked enough already. I think so. I want to give Maya the ending credits.
Sabi ni Vince, sabi ni
Okay.
Mm,
sabi ni Vince, preach. Ginalingan po. Tapos na.
tapos na.
Tapos na.
Mhm.
Ah.
Gustong
So
final
yes,
thoughts.
Sabi sa inyo, Pansit Canton lang yung
so yeah.
about
I
ko sa
mean,
project na
yeah,
to.
we can do some promotion on our other
Yeah, we can
activities that
plug
we've been
some
doing.
stuff.
Yeah.
So closing statements. Okay. What are we doing, guys?
All right. So what are we
So
doing? Go, Gio.
yeah. So apart from this podcast, me and sometimes John G3 down here are all the way on the other side there. We are part of another podcast called The Recap. So
Yes.
it is available on Spotify, and we have just uploaded our fifth episode,
Fifth
which is
episode.
about the Pokemon presents that was last night. Uh, yeah, and yeah, a lot of us here also on the Geeks. So if you guys enjoyed, yeah, our chat here, you can also yeah, you can also go to the Geeks page, follow for any of our articles or videos.
Mhm. Yep. So other things we do is well, so the podcast we run it at least once or twice a month on Mondays, and we do have RPG games which we also stream. We're doing a run of with this group on the Exalted. So that's a game that is very biblical in powers and storylines, very interesting. And
Mm.
so we got those, and then of course on our Saturdays we have um, Bible studies and devos, which are often based off various things in geek culture. So we usually do movie themes, game themes, anime themes, and the like. And ano pa ba yung mga running stuff natin?
So
Oh,
last Saturday we talked about Peacemaker, and that's
yes,
that
sir.
video. That video is actually up on the Level Up website, and we're going to go in depth into the discussion of peace and what it
Mm-hmm.
means and what it means to take up your cross this Saturday. So
Mm-hmm.
join us if you want to learn more. If you're looking for a small group, we're here to help. A support group that's both geek and Christian. Come on in, and even if you're not Christian, join us
Mm,
because we want to
Yes.
Yes.
spend time with you. All right.
get to know
We
you.
we
Yeah.
run this on our Discord and our Facebook page or group.
So our Discord is normally it's invite.gg/LUGN. So we'll have to re-up the invite, no?
The link is
It's right
Um,
actually
there. It's
now
pinned.
it's
It's
the
pinned
link
now.
in
is
the comments.
in the comments. Thank you, Gio. And yeah, we'll be glad to have you. So we're also informally called the Inn of the North Star, which Gio also runs in in Final Fantasy. So you can
Hmm.
also find us
Yes.
there.
So if you play
If you
Final
Um,
Fantasy 14, give us a visit there.
yes,
yes,
if you
we'll
play
be
Final
glad to
Fantasy
have you.
14, we are in Elemental Atomos. We have
Yep,
actual tavern there, but
yep, we
non-alcoholic
do.
drinks.
Yes, generally,
So
no,
it's not
actually,
like
no.
any of them are actually
It's not
alcoholic.
like you'll actually get drunk there, so
Mhm.
it's okay. So yeah, yeah, I guess that's it. We also run events. So paano ba? I
Yes,
think
and
that's pretty
so
much everything, right?
yeah, I just will read the last comment here from Ian Carlo Rillion. Quoting one of the DMs I follow, no friendship is forged better than forged on a gaming table. I think hindi rin yun nalalayo sa pagiging church, di lang dahil we eat a lot, which we do in church.
Which we do.
But
Which we do in
in the
church.
Bible,
Uh,
eating with others
haven't
is a
eaten yet.
form of fellowship. So yeah, I think
Oh,
just to end the night, one just to summarize, I think um we have talked about what the church can learn from geek culture, and there are a lot of good cultural characteristics or habits that the geek culture can bring to the table that we can learn, or
Mhm.
as Maya said, relearn. No,
Yes.
so one of
I,
that is definitely the community gathering people from different backgrounds, different origins,
mhm,
coming
mhm.
together despite our diversity, coming together united. Unity in diversity. University.
Woo! Universe, what?
Yeah, it is. That's what it really means. Ano ka ba?
Yes, true. University, right, right, of course.
Right? And I think it's really having that. I think the most important part, if we are so passionate about our passions, our hobbies, our desires, then we should also be
Mm,
passionate about Christ to other people. And that's it
amen.
for us
Right.
tonight. Thank you so much from the crew of Level Up, and
Uh,
from the
Thank
lady
you.
from outer space. Thank you
I'm
again for
being
joining us.
She's
And
being summoned back out.
she's being summoned back out.
She's been kicked.
She's been voted out because she's an alien.
And good night, guys. Bye
Good night.
bye.
Bye. Arigato. Oyasuminasai.